Welcome to Elevating the Culture, a podcast that explores the complex issues confronting Black men and the people who care about them.
Welcome back to another episode of Elevating the Culture. We're back at it. The podcast that explores the complex issues confronting Black men and the people who care about them. Mr. Russell Brooks.
How y'all doing?
Mr. Malik Adams.
What's up, peoples?
We back.
In person.
The topic this week is healing your inner child. As adults, many of us are still unlearning from the experiences that shaped us. Our parents did the best they could, but most parents have shortcomings and idiosyncrasies that they consciously or unconsciously share with their children. So I think it's a fair statement to say that we've all been harmed in some way. And today is a conversation about just that. So the first question, what are your earliest memories as a young person? Generally. Just generally.
Earliest memories for me, I just remember, for me, one of the things that just came to mind is just I remember going to Bell Park Elementary School in East Preston, predominantly all Black kids. And it was an experience that I'll never forget. Like, I've never been in a space like that, especially a learning environment where we've been the majority. And then also not only being the majority, but also being connected to so many people in one place. You know, like Black communities, especially those rural Black communities, are really close knit, and everybody knows everybody. Even if you're not related, they tell everyone they're related. So it was just a very unique experience, but a very positive one. And I'm very grateful that I had that experience, especially at that young stage in my life. And, you know, as I sit here on this podcast, 43 years old, it's left an impression ever since.
Wow, we finally got his age. I was wondering, okay, 43. See, already this is
Benjamin
successful.
Buttons,
This is a successful session.
He'll be 39 next week.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Keep shifting. I'll say along the lines of that earliest. So I remember a lot of family. Like, I remember family, like big family, especially on my dad's side, and just being around aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents and all that. And I'll say along the school thing. So it's funny. I was talking to the manager today of this space of the studio, and we were talking a bit about school. And he said his child plans on his youngest or his oldest child going to French immersion, and I was in French immersion as a kid.
Really?
So yeah.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, part of the first class in Halifax, 1977. So Russell, so my experience is different. So I loved it when I was a kid because you're learning something new and it's school and friends and French and it's all good. But it wasn't people from my community. So it was actually people from all over Halifax, really, right? You know, you just got busted and went to the one school because there's only one school that had it at the time. And I didn't know it to the extent that I know it now, but I knew it on some level that it was not the same as my physical community. So the way my family and physical community vibed was not necessarily the same way that school vibe.
Absolutely. But
But I remember loving school. Like, those are my earliest memories. I remember loving school. And I also remembered, you know, loving the good things that I got from my family.
I love that, Malik. And we knew when we were leaving the safety of our communities to go into the greater community, there was a difference. You could feel that, even if you couldn't articulate it. So I think that's a fantastic point. When I think about my earliest memories, I think about some of the places that we lived.
Okay.
Right? Me, my mom, and my father, they were together for the early part of my life. And I think about some of those apartments and houses that we lived, the conditions, some of the special occasions, some of the shared memories associated with that. So some of them are positive and some of them are negative.
Right.
But I think back to those spaces that we shared together.
Okay.
So what's something that you needed as a child, but may have not always received?
Ooh. Not everybody at once. That's Reverend Rush, you seem like you're ready, bro.
So I can go first.
Yes.
And in being able to go first is just something that I've actually been able to work through in my life. So that's what has prepared me to respond to this. So I needed my dad.
Right.
And not just needing my dad, but knowing that he saw me.
Okay.
You know, I my dad wasn't physically present throughout a large portion of my life. And like, we didn't really reconcile that relationship till I was in my 30s. And the first time my dad ever told me that he was proud of me was when I was 34 years old. And it broke me. Literally, I was sitting in the Keg restaurant across the table from my dad, and he had told me for the first time in my life that he was proud of me. And literally, like, I sat there in this restaurant and just the tears just came because I had literally waited my whole life to hear that. And I didn't know the weight of hearing it and how that would make me feel.
Right.
So I, as a young person, there were so many different things that I did. Like, I was good in sports. I was a pretty good student. And there was, all these things that I had done that other people would recognize, but my father never, ever did. And he knew, because other people would share it with him, but he never took the time to say, hey, I see you, or hey, I heard this. Hey, keep it up. So I went through my life never getting that affirmation from him. And I didn't know how much of a void it really, had in my life. And when I, like I said, when I sat there and I had that conversation with him and he told me he was proud of me, it literally just broke me. But like, as it broke me, just the weight of pursuing that for my whole life up until that point was released. And it was truly like a freeing and like liberating experience in my life. But it took a long time to get it.
Wow. That's, yeah. I appreciate you sharing that, bro.
Indeed.
Going to you.
Well, I think mine is similar to Russ's. My dad was in and out of my life. And when he was in our life, he was such a big influence. He kind of, however he wanted the environment to look, the things that he thought were important were what were happening.
Right.
He had a huge influence on my life. So when he wasn't there, it created a host of different questions. Why not?
Right.
What's wrong with me? So not having him there consistently, even though when he was there, he was completely engaged and intentional about pouring into me, created, I don't want to say a void, but some challenges that I've had to work through. And I was only able to kind of reconcile those as an adult when I had an opportunity to, like you, have some meaningful conversations and share how that made me feel.
Right. Ooh. Thanks for sharing that, brother. Like, you know what I mean?
Don't come with any trivial shit.
Right? Dang. You took it straight up. Let it. If you didn't know, now you know. Yeah, you can't be late on this one. So I think how I view my thing is a little different. Like, it certainly wasn't perfect. I mean, I think like households, I mean, mom and dad were pretty much there, like, for the most part, right? Now, again, conflicts happening, your typical stuff, you know, relationship stuff and financial stuff and conflict. And sometimes it was combat. And that's very hard to negotiate for anybody, but especially when you're a kid. And so, and I don't say this in a way that like, it's not even blame or anything like that. It's actually far from that. It's just what it is. Because there's so many good things that happen. But I think for me, with all of the things that I like, just all the things that I guess I experienced and went through, what I would have, maybe what I needed more as a kid or growing up is whatever that would have instilled more confidence in me, I think. Like, so there's a significant part of my growing up, and obviously it impacts me now. I mean, we talked about this before, I think, on different levels, but for me, it impacts me now that just not a very confident kid. So, you know, I always felt that other people were more or better a lot, like in a lot of circumstances. So I love sports, but, you know, there are people around me who were better at it, better athletes, right? I never, you know, a long time I went through that I never thought that I was smart, that I never thought that I was attractive or good looking, like, you know, and there was a big part of like all of those things. So when I think about like what I would have needed more as a kid, isn't on any one or more individuals, but it was really like whatever it was, however it was coming to me, that it just fed me like some more self-esteem and self-confidence that I felt better going through that. Now, the path is the path, bro.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? The path is the path. So you work through that as best as you can. You know, you wish you had more strategies, but that would be a thing, because when you're going through it, that's a horrible feeling, man, when you look back. Like, and you remember those things. Like, you always remember how you felt when you felt that you weren't, you know, good looking enough for other girls to like you, or you weren't popular enough for other people to want to be around you, or you weren't, you know, a good enough athlete to make this team or whatever. So I just wish I had, if there was something that would have fed me a little bit more for that self-esteem and self-confidence, that's what I would have, in my mature mind right now, probably would have wanted.
Yeah, brother. And I would want that for a lot of young kids. Imagine what life would be like if folks didn't have to kind of be always comparing themselves to other. They had self-assuredness,
Right.
confidence.
And one thing that I would say to kind of build off that, because it just, as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about it. And for a lot of young Black boys specifically, I feel like a lot of how we feel about ourselves and view ourselves is it's tied to a performative thing.
Oh, hands down.
Where, because how you talked about how you wish you had more of these things, or these seeds being planted, we only felt seen when we were performing, whether it was through sports or, you know, whatever those things
Dancing,
were.
whatever those things were.
Putting on a performance.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, where it wasn't like you're handsome, you're a good person, you're kind, you're
just
smart.
like who you were.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So I just think about that now, as you know, as we engage in these conversations. I just think there's so many people, you know, young brothers that didn't grow up with, you know, that messaging.
And something that Malik is consistently saying is that we have to speak life into people. We have to share that, brother. Right? We can have an impact in other people's lives. So how do you see some of these childhood experiences showing up in your adult life? Either now or in the past?
I'll answer this quickly. Whatever insecurities I had as a child and that I still have now show up. Like anything that, you know, a friend of mine that actually we studied counseling together, and he was talking about, you know, growing up and he was chubby, a chubby kid growing up. And so he says, as a man now, anything around weight, and these were his words, takes me right back to that guy who was chubby. And I remember him saying that, and that was about 10 years ago. And that's how I'm like, yeah, that's it. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. It takes me back. So if there's something that suggests and it may not be even external, like it's the way I'm interpreting it, right? I don't want to always put it on other people. It's like, but if I interpret that something out there is telling me I'm not smart enough, or something is telling me I'm not good enough, or I'm not attractive enough, or I'm not this, or I'm not that, it takes me right back to that little boy who is insecure and not confident and wants to withdraw from other people, even though I know better now, right? Even though I know better now. So at least I think I have some of the strategies to try to work through it. But I'd be lying if I said I get rid of that feeling right away. Like anybody can say something or do something that takes me back to that child, and it's not a fun feeling.
But it's such a fantastic point. And I think that's the kind of crux of the issue here, is that we have these unhealed traumas from our childhood that we're working through, and that there is either internally or external triggers which bring us right back to those thoughts and feelings when we were young, right? And that's the first thing. We have to understand that everybody's experiencing those. And then it's a matter of how we can intercede, how we can break the negative thinking or the behaviors that are associated with that thinking.
I love that. Can I just say something, Russ, before you go? Because when you said about the performance thing, and we've talked about that a lot, you know, Dr. J, you know, talks about that. I think Jason Wilson talks about that. Different brothers talk about it. And I just want to say, like, for those the you know, black men and black boys who aren't quote unquote performers, where are they? You know what I mean? Like I love sports. Sports has been such a big part of my life. And I feel, you know, many of my friends, and I think my path to education, all those things are connected to sports. But what about the people that don't play sports? Like most people don't play competitive sports. What about those black boys who are not a football player and not a basketball player? What? And even if they are, that's fine too. But if they're not, where's their space? Like where's their? So that when you say performance, I always think about those things and then go to how we can support those brothers who aren't that.
100%, and even like support 100%, but also celebrate. You know, we got to find ways and create ways and opportunities to celebrate, you know, the ones that aren't, you know, just athletically gifted, or that's just not, you know, their strong suit, because they're still showing up. They still have value. They still have purpose. You know, and we want to be able to celebrate all of those things too.
Heard up. And some of that is us engaging in unconventional behaviors so that folks can see themselves in us doing those things, whether it's going into theater or to pursuing the arts and doing something, jumping out of a plane, if that's your thing. Ain't my thing.
No,
but if that's your thing
either.
But it's giving other people license to do what they feel is part of who they are. As opposed to these kind of narrow ideas of what a black boy or a black man should look like and do.
So I do want to share something too, and it is a little, I don't want to say dark, but it's just a little more raw, I guess. But when I think about how, you know, my childhood has left an impression on me that I've had to navigate and move through in my adult life is, you know, you talked about relationship with money, but just my relationships in general, and more specifically relationships with women. So, you know, growing up and not having my dad present, you know, in the home, and just like to be able to have those conversations, and even just to have another male role model too, to have those conversations with, to talk to me about, you know, being in relationships and receiving affection, receiving love, you know, receiving, you know, the things that relationships can do and how that can pour into you. So I say this to say that for a long time in my life, being cared for used to scare me. Being cared for used to make me feel really uncomfortable because no one had ever talked to me about, you know, what it's supposed to feel like or what it could or should feel like. And really what I based, you know, my kind of understanding of relationships on was what I was observing. And a lot of what I observed wasn't healthy. So when I would be in a relationship and somebody would tell me they care about me, they like me, they love me, I would shut down. Or I would try to find the quickest way out, So there was times where I would run away from every relationship that I had, in front of me, because I never knew what it was supposed to be like. I didn't know even how to show up and reciprocate it back, because no one had talked to me about it. No one was really modeling it for me. So I spent a long period of my life running away from relationships and, the possibility of like love or being loved. And I had to work through that. I had to be like, well, why am I doing this?
Right.
And I started going through that process of unpacking it and, teaching myself how to receive it, how to know that I'm deserving of it, how to be able to say you're worthy of this. And, it's okay to be loved and it's safe to be loved, all of those things. So when I think about my childhood, that's one of the things that I've had to really, work on, and it's ongoing. You know what I mean? Like I'm in a place now where I can receive it. I feel okay with it. You know what I mean? Like I can sit in it and it doesn't overwhelm me. It doesn't make me feel uncomfortable anymore. So that's for me, the childhood thing that has stuck with me the longest would be that.
Thank you for that. And the idea of relationships, we have to have the understanding that I have an unhealed inner child, and so does my partner.
Right.
Yes.
So we have to extend them that same understanding and grace. And that's tough. Right?
It is tough.
I have made peace with my past, and I got to take yours on now into consideration.
Right.
So, how have you healed, and how do you continue to heal from these childhood traumas?
I'll go first.
Go ahead, brother.
So, forgiveness. That has been the biggest thing for me in my own personal experience. Forgiveness, because, when you were, breaking this down, Jude, you were saying how like we've all been harmed, and we've been harmed by people that we love, that we care about. But beyond that too, we've been harmed by something that we didn't, we didn't sign up for.
Right.
We didn't give permission for this to happen to us. So we need to extend forgiveness, because if we're truly gonna move away from it and release some of the weight that it is pressing on our lives, we have to be able to forgive and let go. And it doesn't mean that we forget, but we have to, be able to say that they were doing the best that they could, regardless of how complicated or complex it is or it was. They just knew what they knew, And so when I was able to forgive, the things from my past and my childhood, it freed me to be able to move forward. And it freed me in a way that allows me to now live in a state or in a way that I'm not projecting my traumas on other people. So forgiveness is the biggest thing for me in terms of how do I move from this, and how do I not let this, incarcerate me in my adult life and prevent me from being able to, evolve, grow, experience peace, joy, and all of the things that we really should aspire to have in our lives.
Right.
That was a bar. Incarcerate you in your adult life.
Yeah. For real. And then Russell, you talk about forgiveness a lot. I mean, we do, but I know that that's been like a theme in terms of, and I just think that's critical.
So can I just add one more piece to the forgiveness, which is that many times we need to forgive ourselves.
Right.
Because as children, we had no control over these situations.
Right.
What was happening to us, what we were a part of, was beyond our control. But many times we internalize that. So we got to forgive ourselves from some of those things.
Right.
Let those things go.
We had no control. And I think we talked about this before, and sometimes we got to remember, we need to remember, not sometimes, all the times, our parents also didn't have control and their parents didn't have control.
Yes.
So then it circles back to the grace part. Like if you've ever had an opportunity, I feel feel fortunate to have opportunity to still have both of my parents. And I try to, and it's all about spending time, but it's also like getting information too. And they at 81 and 80 years old are sharing stuff that I've never heard before. Right. And they didn't have it easy. They probably, but I just feel like generally like that generation had it quote unquote worse than us. And sometimes we talk about our problems and we forget like how they grew up. And I hear some of the stories. So, I mean, the forgiveness, and I love that the forgiveness is reciprocal, right? And the forgiveness is both outward and inward. And yeah, I mean, and I think to me, really along with both of you guys' points, it's acknowledging the fact that that's done now, right? Like I'm not 15 anymore. Mm-hmm. So if I'm feeling the same way that I did with 15, that is an irrational thought. Like, you know what I mean? If I'm feeling the same way that I'm, 25 or reacting the same way, like that's gone. So I have to be very clear about, Malik, you are in a different time,
yes,
in a different space, in a different environment. So if your response is going to be the same way, bro, that ain't healthy.
Right.
That ain't healthy. And that doesn't mean that I don't do it, but it means that when I do, if I can't catch myself, then I have people that will catch it for me and say, Malik, you got to check yourself. Like, really, you still responding that way, brother? Mm-hmm. You still mad over that, or you still doing that, or you still reacting that way? And so those things can work because we're not 10 anymore, man. Like, how long are you going to stay stuck in that space, right? We expect everybody else to evolve and grow, to use your points, Russell. Like, we got to be able to do that too.
Exact same thing. What's something that you would say to your younger self?
Oh, that question. You know what? You got the question. You're going to answer it first.
You have everything you need.
Right.
You're good.
Yeah.
You have everything you need. Now, you're going to have to cultivate skills. You're going to have to invest in introspection and reflection and growth. But you have everything that you need, brother.
Right.
You're enough.
Mm-hmm. And so literally that's what I was going to say. You are enough. Like framing it like that, because I don't think that we hear those words enough. We're always trying to be more. You always feel like you're coming up short. And, I think that the more messaging that we can instill and plant in young people, young boys, young girls, young people in general, just letting them know that you are enough in this moment. You are enough, because the world is going to tell you otherwise.
Right.
There's so
Especially us.
There's so many things that are coming at you that lead you to believe that you need to be more. And it's so harmful. And it'll really put you in a position where you're trying to do more than you need to. You're really trying to take on more than you need to, because you're really trying to be things that you have no business even trying to be at this point in your life.
Right.
So just every day you're enough. You're equipped with what you need to get through the day.
Right. Mm-hmm. I love that. I love both of those things. And again, along the same lines as forgiveness, and these things are going to come back, these themes. You often talk about that. We're enough.
Yep. And
I love that because, and I never really thought about it in that way. I may have heard it before, but I never thought about it in the way that you presented it in the context we presented. I'm like, yeah, like that's a great message for people. Mm-hmm. I'll add on to both of your points is that I would tell my younger self?
Yep.
My younger self, like, your people are out there. Find your people. Like, you can find somebody, like Chris Rock has a joke, talking about partners, and he's like, you're never going to find a soulmate. You're only going to find a mate. Like, you ain't never going to find somebody who likes Seinfeld and the Wu-Tang Clan. Like, that ain't going to, and I'm like, and it made me laugh because I don't know if it's true, but I think, like, I understand the joke, but also, like, you can find your people. There are people out there. Like, that's what I would tell my younger self. Like, there are people that are similar to me or that can enter my life and make my life better. And I think Black boys need to, again, it's on that box theme. Like, we're not just in a box, man. We're so round, and there's so many abilities that we have. And, you know, I would tell my younger self, go find your people. And I would tell younger Black boys, find your people. We say that in high school a lot, by the way. Like, the one thing I like about high school, you know, parents come in, especially if they're their first time, their kids are coming in. You've gone from a school of 100 to now a school of, our school, 1,700. Jude, you know, big school. You went to, what high school you go to?
So I went
Auburn?
I went to what is now Woodlawn. I went to Woodlawn, and then I finished school in Ontario.
Okay. So, you know, but you're going from a small school, an elementary, middle school, to a bigger school, right? And parents come in nervous, and we tell them, listen, your child's going to find their people. Everybody finds their people here. That don't mean there's going to be problems, and there's going to be all that kind of stuff. And schools are still schools. There's bullying, and there's all that kind of crazy stuff that happens. But you can find your people here. You will, in 3 years, you will find your people.
And that's an issue, again, that I think most of us struggle with, the sense of isolation.
Right.
Right. So yes. Yes. All right, folks, we on to rapid fire. There better be some fantastic sound effects from our esteemed producer. We appreciate
He's
you.
our one and only sponsor.
Right.
I'll take the lead on rapid fire if you want.
Yes.
And I'm just going to try to tie it back to this episode.
Cool.
So, thinking back to your childhood, all the things that we've just, you know, discussed, what was the hardest thing that you had to let go of?
Oh my God. You want that to be rapid fire? Dang.
The hardest thing that I've had.
I'm loading up. That's a musket. That ain't, I'm loading up. This ain't rapid. No gat here. It's a musket. I got to put the shrapnel in, the gunpowder, stuff that down.
One more time. Something that the hardest thing I've had to let go of.
Yeah. Or maybe the hardest lesson you've had to learn, if that's easier to respond to.
I'll answer if quick. This is an easy one. I think, actually, no, it's not easy at all.
Well, cool. If you ain't easy, then I'll answer. I'll go to the flip side of my previous answer, that I wasn't enough. Right?
Okay.
That I wasn't enough. That, from whatever, that it was just a general feeling that I wasn't enough. So in moving through that, making sense of that, that's been rewarding for me. That's lightened the load.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say looking at, there's so many things, brother. That's a heavy question. But I love the question because it's important. I think letting go, the biggest thing to let go that I had to let go was, it's broad. I mentioned it before, like my insecurities. I don't even know if I let them go. I would say, but if one thing that I feel confident that I've let go is anger, like anger towards whatever things. I spend a lot of time trying to work through that. It's one of the reasons why I laugh a lot. And I think a lot of us do that, like humor. If you can find humor in something, that means things aren't as bad as we make it out to be. We can find some joy in it.
Yep.
And that's a way, that's therapeutic for me. Like, so the anger of, and not even at an individual, or it's just all that's built up over the things that we had to navigate as Black boys. And that doesn't mean forgetting it. Like letting it go doesn't mean forgetting it. You never forget it, but you let it go because it's just not healthy, man.
For sure.
Yep.
Expectations of the adults in my life as a child.
Ooh.
That's the one for me, because we always put these, expectations on others that they have no idea of what those expectations even are.
True.
They didn't even say, yep, I can do this for you.
Right.
I can commit to this. I can honor this. So that was something that I struggled with, as I grew older and started to, make meaning of a lot of my childhood. And what shaped me was like a lot of it was rooted in I had this expectation of this person to keep me safe, to lead me, to, all of those things. And just like they weren't realistic. And once I was able to be like, you know what, those were never realistic.
Yeah.
It made it easier for me to grow, evolve, mature,
Reconcile.
and start to move through that healing continuum.
There was some heaviness to this episode, and let's kind of finish looking at something positive. What is a joy or a memory that you take with you in adulthood from your childhood?
A joy. One of the things that I remember, I remember a lot of things, but the parties are something that were kind of like in our family. Were kind as a kid, it was cool. First of all, it was cool to like be around. You weren't really in adults' faces because that wasn't what it was like then. Like you just had to say hi to everybody and kiss and hug and keep it moving, right? Because that wasn't a place for kids. But I just remember the excitement around that. I remember seeing, and obviously I'm a kid, I don't really understand it, but they're sitting around, I'm sure they're drinking, they're talking, they're loud, people are over talking to each other. Somebody starts singing, there's a guitar, somebody starts playing music. I just remember that excitement. Now, it may end in a fight.
Probably.
At the end of the night, it may, you know what I mean? You hear that you go from the strumming of the guitar to you hear a guitar being whacked over somebody's back, but that was probably the alcohol involved. But I do remember like that, man. That was fun.
Boxing Day was just a family tradition that brought everyone together. And like going back to what I mentioned about like close knit, so East Preston, a lot of my family members' homes were in close proximity to the point you could literally just walk across the street, walk next door, and everyone just opened up their home. You know what I mean? So you know that if you want to start early, you went to, you know, my great grandmother's house. And then, you know, if you were looking for, there's a bootlegger, happened to be my uncle, you know, that's where you would end the night. And then there would be houses in between that you would just go from one house to the next.
Yeah, bro.
And just all of the things that you just described, like just, you know, there was just so much like joy, you know, the best jokes you would ever hear in your life, you know, just people dancing and just loving on one another. And just, you know, as a kid, like, you know, you would go in because you were taught to show your respect. So you would go in, you would, you know, address and acknowledge everybody. But then you would just be kind of pushed into like one spot in the house where all the kids would go, don't you come out there no more, mind your business. And like, you know, but like, it was just so fun. And like, for me, that's also how I learned who people were. You know, I got to know the people in my life and know their story. So that's a childhood memory that, you know, I has shaped me. And it's unfortunate that like it's not the same as it was when I was a kid, but I appreciate that my family's trying to start to get back to some of that so that like our kids can experience and see the benefits and value in it. But
I love that.
Yes.
And we're old enough to remember that for me, it was primarily men. Men would move from house to house, either Christmas Day or Boxing Day.
Okay.
Get one or two drinks and keep it moving.
Right.
Some people stay for more than one or two drinks.
You ain't moving too fast there, Jimmy. You know what I mean? Been here for a while.
Finish my drink,
Time to move on. Like,
when I think of joy, I think of playing outside as a kid. Right. I'm going to mention this once, but I truly believe we had the best childhood ever. And you always encourage me to look back at the past with objectivity and not sometimes the bias. But man, oh man, we had a time growing up. Being outside, playing in fields, being unsupervised, resolving problems, creating games, using our imagination. It was an amazing experience, something that I would love every child to have.
And I wanted to say one thing too, because I think about kids now in comparison to like, you know, back when we were younger, you know, years ago. One of the worst punishments I could have had as a kid was being sent to my room.
Sent to your room.
Because there wasn't nothing in it.
No.
You know what I mean? It was a bed, there was a few toys or whatever, some clothes, you know, a little bit of furniture, but like there wasn't like a television, video games, you know, and some of the toys and like tablets and devices that the kids have now. Like kids, it's not a punishment to set a child to their rooms now. They want a game, they want to be on a tablet, they want to, you know. So I just think back, like it's just so different because like being outside was just everything. It meant everything. And there was no technology. We didn't have concept of time unless it got dark or the streetlights came on, and just that doesn't exist the way that it used to.
Well, and every health practitioner would say like the importance of all of those things, right? Movement, creativity,
Getting
endorphins, fresh air,
Getting the
like
sun.
all of it, like everybody understands the value of that. We weren't told that, but our parents and our people knew the health benefits
Yeah.
of it, right?
So, what is elevating you? What's elevating you this week?
I'm laughing because Groundhog Day. That's a Groundhog Day. Can we keep it a little bit broader? What's elevating you just in general? Like,
I'll just say to keep it in line with this
With
session.
the topic, yeah.
yeah, man.
Memories of my childhood.
Right.
You know, because even though we went through some things that, you know, weren't positive or, you know, have harmed us, I think it's important to still be able to, you know, relive a lot of those memories and remember a lot of those memories that brought us joy, that brought us, you know, just really shaped us now. You know what I mean? A lot of that, you know, those childhood memories have left an impression that have stuck with us, that have shaped us. And I wouldn't have it any other way because I wouldn't be who I am today. So
Yeah.
that my childhood is still elevating me today.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that, and I'll just add to it. It's a nice, again, gives us the opportunity to think about like you can move forward, right? It wasn't all bad. It wasn't all bad. And so that's actually a health practice, you know what I mean? That I think a lot of us as Black men need to do.
And I guess this is deeply personal. And this requires vulnerability, especially in this group. That could be difficult.
Very, very.
So, again, we talk about the importance of sharing and leading by example. So I believe that we're elevating the culture. I'm elevating myself and engaging these conversations and processing some of the issues and feelings I'm still struggling with. But I believe that we're also elevating the culture by sharing this topic and our personal experiences with others.
Yeah, man.
That's what's up. So that's it.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Yes, sir.